What's up? Well, I'm taking a walk near my home and thought I'd talk to you a little bit about revising your literacy sponsorship analysis. But first, do you know William? Well, he recently joined the Army and he really does not like the phrase fire at will. Alright, so let's talk about the revision and editing of your second essay. So the first thing, you might be looking through the rubric and looking at the 5 column to figure out, what you need to do to have an exceptional piece of writing. And you need to make sure that you have your main claim, that you have some sort of takeaway that you have learned from analyzing your literacy sponsors, especially the limited number of literacy sponsors that you analyze in your paper. So there should be some kind of takeaway, some main claim that you can state of what you've learned or what you can see and connect within your literacy narrative from your sponsorship. And that claim should be clear, it should be, not very ambiguous at all or confusing. And, if it's interesting and the more unique it is, the better. And, you need to have your analysis actually analyzing your sponsors, commentary on how they are sponsors and their effects and the relationship and what they've received and what you received, and if there's any misappropriation or competition, stratification, and what kind of dynamics are present and whatnot. All that fun stuff, all your analysis. And make sure that you have your narrative elements in line with your analysis. Nothing is there that shouldn't be there. Everything is pulling its weight, and there is sufficient weight to be pulled. So if you don't have any narrative elements, it might be kind of dry. Although I really don't know how you can not have narrative elements, but I suppose it might be possible. But you want to make sure that they line up with the things that you're saying in your analysis, and that they don't overshadow your analysis. You want to make sure that you have interesting narrative elements and anecdotes and things that you provide the experiences of that you want to discuss without getting off track or something like that, because it might be really easy to when you start writing like a little brief few, like a short paragraph about something that happened, and you want to spend a few more paragraphs discussing what that experience means in terms of your analysis, in terms of your literacy development, in terms of sponsorship. It might be easy to end up writing a lot about that. So you want to make sure that you've gone through and that it all contributes nicely. And wait, there's a car coming, so so you want to make sure about all that. And you might sit there and wonder, I've got my draft, but it's mostly this, or it's not enough that. and I don't have enough words yet or something. Well, about the word count, you'd be surprised how much you could say about when you get really narrowed and focused, you know. So you want to try to really focus in on uh, your main analytical claims. You might feel that you need to make a really broad claim, like I learned to read and write in third grade, or whatever, first grade or something, and that's really broad, and you might feel that that's as narrow as you want to get. But the truth is that you can actually get more words when you focus your essay, because if you will just want to say I learned to read in preschool and I learned to write in second grade or something, I don't know, that's pretty much cut and dried and that's done. But if you get more focused, you get more specific about certain dynamics and relationships and interactions and implications and connections, that's when you can actually have more to say. I think maybe I mentioned this before, but if you're saying exercise is good, then I know you've said it already. But if you get more focused, you can say a lot more. So, focus your narrative elements, focus your claims. That way you can say more about them. And make sure that you've treated all of your narrative elements as evidence, so that you're using it appropriately, and it supports the analytical claims that you're making. All right, so now here, just a brief pause from our main topic at hand is I haven't walked very far, but here, this is also part of campus. This is the Andrews University Air Park. So it's a nice little place to walk to. So, I keep doing little brief segments of tours in these videos. So I thought, hey, I don't live very far from the air park, so I'll just, walk over there. All right. So, I'm like, okay, I thought it was kind of silhouetted there, and I was like, blown out in one picture, one part, and then too dark in the other part. So, you want to make sure that you've used, your narrative elements really well. You want to make sure that, you follow an organizational pattern that's beneficial for the points that you want to make in your analysis. So, if you have one unbroken structure, then you need to make sure that everything, is really solid when it flows. And if you have, different sections like a collage or subheadings of various things, then, you need to make sure that where you end a section is on a really strong note, or it makes sense to end it there for some reason, and that all your sections have a similar naming scheme. If you label the first section 1, don't label the second section B, unless you have a really good reason for that. And if you have some kind of phrase that you use, if you have some kind of pattern to make those phrases really stand together, that's good. Kind of like the idea with the parallelism, where if you have a case where when you're editing, to make sure that all of your grammatical parts are in parallel within a series. You don't have ing and then past tense and then a infinitive. To run, to eat, to procrastinate. That's infinitive. So if you mix those in all in one sentence, it kind of sounds strange. Same thing with yours, section titles and labels. Not that they have to be the same grammatical structure, but there should be something that, in most cases, would kind of make them similar, or and similar, and follow some kind of pattern, some kind of rule. So you'll want to do that, and you want to hang on, hold on a second. I need to. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so you want to make sure that all that stuff kind of like lines up, and that basically all of your essays telling one overall story, and that's the story of your main claim. I'm using the word story very casually here, so analytical is not really a story, but basically it is. So not in terms of the story that we think of when we think of the word story, but you're telling a story, so make sure that you're telling one story, so that all of your subclaims and all the other pieces are all contributing. They're all united in the main purpose of your paper. Make sure that you keep the same audience in mind. Not like you have to think of the exact people, but if your essay starts out in kind of formal and then suddenly changes to very casual, you might want to go through and make it all casual or all of it formal or whatever. So coming up around this bend, and this bend is interesting. There's no stop sign here, and I think they probably should put one, because there are a lot of children that live on this road, and some people come around this corner and they don't slow down, so it's not cool. So please drive safely. Alright. One more thing before I talk about editing is to go through, and you probably should make sure that Deborah Brandt's article and or some other works from our book are supporting your analysis. That kind of gives context for what literacy sponsorship is, and what you mean by it. I mean, at the very least, you're probably going to have to define literacy sponsor and or literacy sponsorship or literacies or something like that. So you'll need to quote from or paraphrase from or summarize from Deborah Brandt's article and or other works. So you'll need to make sure that you properly cite those sources when you edit them too. So, and you'll want to make sure that anytime that you do use that material, that it's actually meaningfully contributing, because whenever you kind of just stick a source in there just to have it, it's usually pretty obvious that it's just kind of meaninglessly tossed in, just a check-in item off a list. So, think carefully about, how you're incorporating sources when you're doing so. And finally, when we talk about editing, much of the same things that I mentioned in the rhetorical analysis editing section, print it out if you can, or if you want to, or put it on a tablet. Read it out loud. Definitely read it out loud. Reading out loud is one really good way that you often will catch lots of typos or situations where you wrote the wrong word. And sometimes writing the wrong word leads to, a completely different meaning, because it might still make grammatical sense, and it might, completely make something opposite. Like one common typing error that I have. Well, I'm not sure if I have it a lot anymore because I changed my keyboard layout. I don't use QWERTY very much anymore. I use Colmac. But back when I was using QWERTY a lot, then I noticed that a lot of times if I wanted to type the word now, I would type the word not. And if I wanted to type the word not, I would type the word now. And you can see how this can lead to some problems, because there are many cases where you can interchange those words and the word grammar check will not bring up that squiggly line, because it will still recognize that it's grammatically correct, and you'll see the word and it won't be misspelled. And so it won't come to your attention unless you carefully, if you read it out loud, then you'll say, wait a minute, that sentence has an opposite meaning. Instead of saying, I'm not hungry, it says, I'm now hungry. Or, basically, it could give, an opposite meaning. So that's really the big thing about editing is, I think I mentioned this before, but it's pretty much not, you can almost count on, especially the longer the document gets, that there will be some mistake that slips past an editor's eyes or ears. But we only want to minimize that, and especially, we want to keep it from becoming distracting for readers, and especially to keep it from, becoming something that will confuse them. So if your sentence is kind of jumbled up, it might be confusing. And if you use the wrong word, it might be confusing. And when we talk about citation, then that becomes even like an ethical thing, because if you don't put quotation marks around the place where you have directly lifted word for word from a source, then you can be guilty of academic dishonesty. So there are various reasons that we have editing. I don't think that all of them are just because the rules are traditional and they have to be followed, because the rules of language change. And I kind of feel bad sometimes when I look at when I think about how, I don't know if I ever was a grammar Nazi per se, but I think I definitely had some of those tendencies. Where on the internet, people are always ragging on other people about small little mistakes and calling them stupid for it, and that's, it's just mistakes, But we do want to make sure that our documents are readable and that they make sense, and that our mistakes are minimized so that they don't distract or confuse our readers too much. So that's what I think about that. Hold on a moment. I had another thing that was just in my head that I want to make sure, and it's starting to go away. So I'm going to take a little break to make sure that I don't forget what it was, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. It was actually two things. One of them is that going back to this idea of reading out your essay out loud is you can really tell, if someone hasn't done that, because usually, you think faster than you type. In fact, I think that's pretty much universal, unless you can type like 300 words a minute. Actually, no, that's speaking speed. Thinking speed, I think I heard that was like 10,000 words a minute. Of course, I don't know how they came up with that number, but that's what I heard. You think at the rate of 10,000 words a minute. I suppose if you translate words into pictures or images into words in order to convey the images that are in your head when you think. But even, if you think words, think about the words that you want to type, you're probably thinking of them faster than you can type, unless you can type like 170, 230 words a minute. So it's very easy, even for everyone, to kind of put words and to skip words and put words in the wrong order, kind of transpose words so that the sentence kind of is really confusing. But if you read your essay out loud, seriously, read it out loud, you'll probably catch like 9 times out of 10 where that happens. If it sounds funny to you, it probably is funny. So, and then the other thing, make sure that if you have a question about you know, if you're not certain about, if you have a place where you think, I think I want to use a semicolon right here, but I'm not sure exactly how to use it. One resource I would really recommend, of course, actually two, for if you want to like look up editing stuff. Also, for one of them, documentation. I think it's listed on the documentation file anyway, but the Purdue OWL, which means Purdue Online Writing Lab. If you look that up, that is a great resource for all kinds of writing things, for for editing and grammar and punctuation and all that kind of stuff. And that's also good for MLA and APA and Chicago style rules and things. And another good source is Grammar Girl. That's one I really like to look up if I have a specific question about something that I would like to refresh my memory about, or if I want to like learn some background about it. In fact, what was it? Yeah, it was the other day I had a question and I looked up on Grammarly Girl, and anyway, she like explains things really clearly so you can use it. And she also kind of gives like usually like a little context about like, oh, this was historically different for it's like some little interesting, like a couple of sentences about the historical elements of it, or how it's changed over time or whatever. So it's pretty interesting. So I really recommend the Purdue OWL, Purdue Online Writing Lab, and Grammar Girl, if you have some questions. But speaking of the semicolon, how to use a semicolon? It's like a soft period. So if you want to like make two sentences be one, but you don't want to say and, but, or, because, so, for, any of those conjunctions, then you can, instead of putting a period and putting like a harsh stop between them, then you can put the semicolon, and that separates two two complete independent clauses that you feel are really closely related. So that's just a little bit about semicolons. It's one of my favorite punctuation marks. Of course, it can be overused, but that's not really the point now, is it? All right, so I guess that that's pretty much it. So basically, keep in mind that the main idea behind editing is making things readable and making it not distracting, and making it clear. Unclear editing, you might have unclear meaning. And obviously in certain contexts, then editing is not such, well, editing will follow different principles for different situations. Sending a text message, editing principles are somewhat relaxed. They're still there, that's why we have people that have like autocorrect drama, but the rules are different. So it's based on your situation too. But here, you have a professionally written essay that you probably want people to take in a certain perspective. So you want to have somewhat professional editing too. All right, that has been the end of this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.